You ever feel a room thin out the moment someone decides you don't belong? That happened to me at Aunt Marcia's garden party, but it didn't start with a raised glass or a thrown insult. It started with a whisper that cut cleaner than any shout. "I can't believe she still takes the bus," my sister said, like it was the punchline to a joke everyone had already agreed to laugh at. She said it across a plate of scallops, her voice bright and careless, as if she just described a quaint hobby instead of my life. My mother didn't even look up from her salad. "Not everyone can afford cars like Preston," she added, and the name dropped like a brass bell in my chest. Preston. Their standard of measurement for success. Preston's car, Preston's house, Preston's name on every invitation. Before we begin, drop a comment and tell us where are you from and from which city you're watching our videos. And after watching the whole video, don't forget to tell us what would you do in this situation. Be honest. Tell me in the comments below. We read every comment. Let's begin. I smiled. It was a small thing, practiced over years, the kind of smile that keeps your mouth busy while your insides are doing paperwork, receipts, debts, promises. People liked my smile. People liked the way I made everything seem unimportant. My sister, Caroline, or Carrie, as everyone called her, sipped her wine and leaned back, posture immaculate. She wore the kind of dress that looked like someone had folded ambition into the fabric. "Maya, you can't still be taking the bus in this neighborhood," she said, all sympathy, as if she were swapping me a pitying glance in a movie. I could have told them the obvious things, that my bus pass saved me 3 hours a week, that public transportation let me read without worrying about traffic, that I like the anonymity and the small, honest interruptions of real life. I could have said I was saving quietly, not for a dress or a party, but for something that mattered to me. But why feed them anything useful? So I smiled instead and watched the room. There were my parents, Diane and Robert Bennett, seated in their corner of the sunlit patio, aging well in the ways that money lets you age. My mother's laugh was a soft bell. My father clapped at a joke about a stock tip and never once glanced my way. Their faces were the map of my childhood. Safe lines, familiar silence. Across the yard, Preston, Real Estate Preston, waved at someone and everyone pretended not to notice the small crowd gathering around his table. He was the kind of man who filled a room without speaking much. You felt the space he occupied before you saw him. He drove the cars people envied and married into the family partly for that very reason. Preston and his car were shorthand for everything my family wanted to be. The joke landed, and the air shifted. My cheeks stayed calm. People clinked glasses. Conversation moved on to travel, to school fundraisers, to the latest luxury kitchen remodel that would be featured in a magazine because money loves an audience. After the party, Carrie walked me to the driveway with that soft, practiced pity again. "Come on, Maya, we'll get you an Uber home," she offered, as if the gesture redeemed her words. "I'm fine," I said. "I'll take the bus. I like it." She laughed like I had said something adorable. "You and your bus stories." Then softer, like she was trying on kindness, and it didn't suit her. "Promise me you'll at least let me drive you sometimes. Preston's car can fit you. You know, when he's not showing off." I didn't tell her that Preston had offered me a ride once, during a winter gala, and I'd politely declined. Not because I liked the bus more, but because I had my own reasons for being careful, for keeping my distance, for knowing when to accept charity and when to expect strings. You learn the strings early when your family measures value in summer homes and model cars. That night, I rode home with the city buzzing past the windows. The bus smelled like city life, coffee, paperbacks, the faint tang of someone's late-night dinner. I had my bag, my laptop, a book half read. The hum of the engine was a companion. For a long time, I watched the lights streak past and thought about how they looked like the timelines people drew for themselves. Neat, straight, glittering in the dark. When I unlocked my apartment, the hallway light buzzed on, and the building smelled like laundry and day-old pizza. And I felt, for the first time in a while, how completely ordinary and untethered my life truly was. No valet, no marble foyer, just a kettle, a radiator, and a small stack of invoices on my kitchen counter with little red stamps begging for attention. Work the next morning was the usual rhythm. One client meeting at 9, another at 11, code to review, an ad draft for a small nonprofit that wanted to modernize its platforms. I ran a boutique digital marketing firm. Nothing flashy, 2 desks, a wall of plants, and the occasional freelancer who worked in sweatpants but produced miracles. The business didn't pay in prestige yet, but it paid with something else: control. It paid me the slow assurance that every dollar that came in was mine. I like that. At noon, my assistant Jules slid me a cup of coffee and a stack of mail. "You've got a letter from the bank," she said. Her eyebrows climbed, curious. "And a birthday card from Grandma. Oh, and this." She handed me an envelope that felt heavy with importance. My name was on it in neat, official print. No return address. "Curious," I said, and opened it at my desk, unconcerned. Inside was a single sheet of paper and a small glossy photo. The photo showed a plot of land, nothing dramatic, just a square of earth with a single old oak tree and a tiny weathered shed off to the side. The paper had an address and a note. "Your payment plan begins next month." My heart thudded in a way I didn't expect. It wasn't fear, it was the exact opposite. A focused, clean sort of excitement, like when you see a scoreboard and the numbers are in your favor. I read the small print. A small mortgage had been approved in my name, a modest loan with a monthly payment I could handle. The bank's letter confirmed a property transfer arranged by someone who insisted on discretion. No name, nothing else. I should have been suspicious, but maybe I'd had enough of speculating and pretending. Maybe the past few years of late nights, of pitching clients, of saying no to investors who wanted too much, had taught me the difference between what looks impossible and what is merely smart patience. For the rest of the day, I kept thinking about the oak tree in the photo. I imagined fixing that shed, planting a garden, making a place that smelled like bread and sun and actual ownership. My mind sketched renovations, budgets, the way a small house could be turned into a home with a little elbow grease and a lot of stubbornness. That evening, my phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "Did you receive the letter?" I typed back, "Yes. Who is this?" No answer for a few minutes. Then, "Someone who admires people who don't make a fuss. Meet me tomorrow at the farmer's market, 2 p.m. I'll be near the lavender stand. Come alone." I considered ignoring it. I considered calling Mom and asking if this was some elaborate family prank. I considered showing Carrie and letting her laugh until she ran out of breath. But curiosity has a way of unraveling patience. And the farmer's market was a public, benign place. If this was a prank, it would end with a petty laugh and an apology. If it wasn't, it might be the start of something real. At 2 p.m., the market was a quilt of umbrellas and vendors. The lavender stand smelled like a Provence fantasy, and a woman in a sun hat hawked hand-knit scarves. I wandered past, scanning faces, half expecting to see Preston, polished and preening amid the jam jars. Then I saw her. Not a she I recognized, but a woman whose presence made the people around her unconsciously rearrange themselves. She was in her late 40s, maybe early 50s, wearing a simple blouse and jeans, her hair pulled back in a practical bun. She had an open, imperious air, someone who'd been used to being heard. She stood by a crate of heirloom tomatoes and smiled at me as if she'd been waiting. "Maya Bennett?" she said, and when I nodded, she held out a hand. "I'm Lydia Carter. I apologize for the secrecy. I don't do well with fanfare." Something in the tilt of her chin, the quiet certainty in her eyes, made me think of the oak tree in the photo. "Who sent the letter?" I asked. She smiled, and it was not indulgent. "You did." I blinked. "I did?" "You made an offer 3 years ago," she said. "A small, stubborn offer. You attached a plan. You said you weren't buying it for resale. You wanted a place to make things, a place to breathe. The land's owner agreed to wait. When the time came, I helped close the loop." It was a lot to process. Her words were precise and kind and impossible to call coincidence. I thought of my smile at the party, how easy it had been to hide the truth. I thought of the bus, the invoices, the late nights, and under all of it, something was shifting. Not just the possibility of a house, but the idea that my life might tilt toward what I wanted, not what others expected. "Why?" I asked, oddly defensive. "Why help me?" "Because I've seen people confuse noise with success," Lydia said. Because I like the ones who keep working when no one's applauding. Because Preston doesn't need another friend who buys his car, he already has them. You need a chance. She handed me a folded piece of paper, a small map, and a key. My hands shook when I took it, not from fear, but from the sudden, torrential possibility of finally moving. Do you want to see it? Lydia asked. And for the first time since the party, I didn't smile to cover anything. I let my face show what it felt, a raw, bright hope. Yes, I said. She nodded. Good. Tomorrow morning. Bring gloves. As I walked away from the market, the city hummed the same as always. Car horns, distant sirens, the clack of a skateboard on a curb, but something in the air felt different, like a page turned. My phone buzzed again, a simple message from an unknown number. Don't tell them yet. I laughed. It was a private, unshared sound, small and delighted. And beneath the laugh, steady and true, a plan began to form. The morning air smelled like change, not the kind that creeps up quietly, but the kind that hits with purpose. Clean, electric, and sharp enough to jolt you awake before your coffee even does. By 8 a.m., I was driving out of the city in a borrowed truck Lydia had arranged for me. She said, "You'll need something sturdy," and handed over the keys without ceremony. I liked that about her. No sugarcoating, no grand speeches, just movement. The directions led me 40 minutes outside the city, down a winding country road lined with oaks and morning dew. When I finally turned onto the gravel driveway, I stopped breathing for a second. There it was, the land from the photograph. An old shed, a wide field, a single oak tree that stood like it had seen decades come and go, and parked near the fence, an empty patch of soil just begging to be built upon. Lydia was already there, standing beside her white SUV, hands in her pockets. "You made it," she said with a grin. I stepped out, gravel crunching under my shoes. This is really mine?" "Every inch of it," she said. "Your name's on the deed." I couldn't speak for a moment. The wind caught my hair, and for once I didn't care how I looked. I just stared at the horizon. The kind of view that didn't come with city apartments or borrowed cars. It came with patience, with endurance, with knowing that silence doesn't mean failure. Lydia motioned toward the small shed. "It needs work, but I've seen worse turn into magic. You said in your letter you wanted a place that felt like you. This is your start." The next few hours passed in a blur. We walked the land, made notes, talked about zoning, utilities, construction permits, all the boring stuff that suddenly felt thrilling when it was mine. By the time I got back to the city, I was dusty, sweaty, and grinning like an idiot. At home, I dropped onto my couch and opened my laptop. I didn't scroll social media. I didn't check the news. I opened my business account and made one transfer. A down payment for something I'd been looking at quietly for months. A car? Not just any car. A Tesla Model Y, midnight silver. The kind that hums instead of growls. The kind that turns heads but whispers, "I earned this." I wasn't buying it for them. I was buying it for me. Still, I'd be lying if I said I didn't picture their faces when they'd see it. The dealership called me the next day to confirm delivery. "Your car will be ready by Friday morning, Ms. Bennett," the sales rep said cheerfully. "Would you like it dropped off?" "Oh, no," I said, fighting a grin. "I'll come get it myself." Friday arrived like a promise fulfilled. I slipped into a simple white blouse, tied my hair back, and called an Uber to the dealership. As the driver pulled up, I saw it parked there under the glass awning, shining like a quiet victory. The sales manager, a man named Logan, walked over with a clipboard and a wide smile. "Ms. Bennett, she's all yours." When I sat in the driver's seat, the silence was surreal. No engine roar, just a hum of precision and power. My reflection in the mirror was calm, confident, different. And that's when I knew exactly where I was driving first. The Bennett estate, the place that had never quite felt like home. But today, it was about to feel something else entirely. When I pulled up the long circular driveway, I saw Preston's black Mercedes parked by the fountain, Carrie's SUV beside it, and my father's old Range Rover gleaming in its usual spot. The security guard, Frank, looked up from his booth, blinked at the new car, and smiled. "Morning, Miss Bennett," he said with a nod. "Nice ride." "Thanks, Frank," I replied, stepping out and clicking the door shut. Inside, voices echoed from the dining room. Laughter, the clinking of silverware, the usual Saturday brunch chaos. I didn't even knock. When I walked in, conversation stopped mid-sentence. My sister's fork hovered in the air. My mother's lips parted. Preston's eyebrows lifted in what might have been surprise, or maybe disbelief. Maya, Mom blinked. What are you doing here? I thought you had work. I do, I said casually, setting my keys on the table. But I thought I'd stop by. I parked in the driveway. Hope that's okay. Carrie laughed lightly, her voice carrying that same amused tone. You parked your bus in the driveway? I smiled. Not today. Dad frowned. Then whose car? Carrie's sentence died mid-breath when Preston looked out the window. His jaw tightened slightly. That Tesla? I turned toward him, every word slow, deliberate. That's mine. For a second, no one spoke. You could have heard a pin drop between the china plates. My mother blinked twice, like she hadn't processed it yet. Carrie's mouth opened, then closed again. Yours? As in, you bought it? Yup, I said, leaning casually against the chair. Fully mine. Registered, paid, insured. Want to see the plate? Preston's expression shifted, calculating. My father just stared, silent, the way men do when their worldview tilts an inch. Finally, Mom spoke. When did this happen? 3 days ago, I said, smiling faintly. I figured it was time to stop taking the bus. Carrie's laugh came out forced. Wow, so suddenly you're all successful now? Not suddenly, I said quietly. Just finally. The silence that followed wasn't cruel. It was something better. It was realization. The kind that sits heavy, cold, and undeniable. Dad cleared his throat. Well, congratulations. It sounded foreign coming from him. Thanks, I said. But honestly, it's not about the car. Preston tilted his head. Then what is it about? I met his gaze. About driving my own road. Finally. I picked up my keys and walked. Back out to the Tesla. The sunlight hit the chrome letters on the back. Maya B. etched cleanly into the plate. As I drove off, I caught sight of them through the mirror, standing on the porch, small against the long white columns. Their faces were pale, their mouths slightly open. For once, I didn't smile to hide anything. I smiled because I'd won. Quietly, cleanly, without ever needing to explain how. And this time, I wasn't taking the bus home. For days after that morning, the silence from my family was almost musical. No calls, no texts, just the sound of distance, the kind that finally feels peaceful. But peace doesn't last long when pride is on the line. 3 days later, as I sat in my new office, the one I'd been saving for, the one with floor-to-ceiling windows and a skyline view, my phone lit up. It was Carrie. I debated answering. Then curiosity won. Maya, she said, voice honey-sweet but trembling underneath. Hey, I just wanted to say congratulations. About the car. It's beautiful. Thanks, I said simply. I didn't know your company was doing that well, she continued. Preston said maybe we could, collaborate sometime. He's looking to expand his real estate portfolio online. You're in digital marketing, right? There it was. Not an apology, but an opportunity disguised as kindness. Sure, I said. Tell him to send an email. My assistant will set something up. A pause. You have an assistant now? 2, I replied with a calm smile she couldn't see. And a new office downtown. You should stop by sometime. The silence on the other end stretched long enough to taste. Then she muttered something about lunch plans and hung up. I leaned back in my chair, watching the reflection of my Tesla gleam in the building's glass. This wasn't revenge through shouting or proving. This was revenge through thriving and letting them witness it. Later that week, I got an invitation in the mail. Fancy paper, gold trim, written like it was from royalty. Preston Realty and Family Appreciation Brunch, hosted by Preston and Caroline Hale. I laughed out loud. The irony was delicious. I went. I arrived not as the forgotten sibling, but as the woman who had something to show. My car rolled up to the valet circle, and the attendants straightened like soldiers when they saw the sleek design. My dress was simple but tailored. Power didn't need glitter anymore. Inside, chatter filled the air. Glasses clinked. Then I spotted them. Mom, Dad, and Carrie, sitting at a corner table. Preston was mid-conversation with 2 investors when he looked up and froze. Maya, he said, the smile almost perfect, but not quite. Didn't expect to see you here. Invitations work both ways, I replied smoothly. Lovely event. Carrie stood awkwardly. You look different. Success does that, I said. Preston gestured toward a display board behind him, showcasing new real estate projects. We're actually pitching an eco-friendly expansion plan. Smart homes, renewable energy. I cut in, calm but firm. Oh, that's cute. My firm just got the marketing contract for a Tesla-backed sustainability campaign. Funny how the world overlaps. Carrie's glass froze mid-air. Mom's fork dropped onto her plate with a small metallic sound. Preston blinked. Wait, you're working with Tesla? Partnering, I corrected. Their regional marketing lead personally signed off. The silence that followed was better than any standing ovation. That night, as I drove home, my phone buzzed again. A text from Mom. We're proud of you, Maya. We didn't realize how much you've achieved. I stared at the message for a long time. The words were simple, but they carried years of absence. Then I typed back, You don't have to say it. Just treat me like you finally see me. When I parked the Tesla in my driveway that night, I looked at the house, the one Lydia had helped me buy, the oak tree swaying gently in the wind, the porch light glowing warm, and for the first time in years, I didn't feel like the outsider. I wasn't the sister on the bus anymore. I was the woman who built her own road. And finally, she was home. The following weekend, the wind carried the scent of spring, fresh cut grass, warm sunlight, and the feeling that something big was finally turning in my favor. For the first time, I wasn't rushing to catch a bus or hustling between client meetings. I was home, my own home. The little house on the land Lydia had shown me was nearly finished. Contractors were painting the last wall, the porch was sanded smooth, and the Tesla sat proudly in the driveway like a signature at the bottom of everything I'd worked for. When I stepped outside that morning, my phone buzzed with a message from Lydia. Drive by the estate today. Something tells me they could use a reminder of what quiet strength looks like. I smiled. It wasn't arrogance. It was closure. By noon, I was behind the wheel again, sunlight glinting off the hood as I drove through the gates of the Bennett estate. Frank, the security guard, waved me in with a grin. They'll be surprised to see you again, Miss Bennett. Oh, I said with a light laugh. That's the plan. The timing couldn't have been better. My parents were hosting a charity lunch. Reporters, socialites, half the neighborhood. Perfect audience. When I pulled into the circular driveway, cameras flashed instinctively. People whispering about the Tesla and the woman stepping out of it in confidence. My sister's laughter floated from the patio until she turned and saw me. Her voice cracked. Maya, Mom's smile faltered. What are you doing here? Just supporting the family event, I said, walking up the steps. You always said appearances matter. Preston tried to recover, smiling tightly. You certainly made one. Thanks, I said, flashing the key fob in my hand. Tesla tends to have that effect. Whispers followed. People asked questions. Curious, impressed. Mom tried to act composed, but I could see the unease in her eyes. And then the twist came. One of the local reporters, who happened to be one of my firm's new clients, walked straight up to me, beaming. Maya Bennett, we're so glad you're here. The article about your company goes live tomorrow. The woman behind the Tesla campaign. We'd love a quote. Every head turned. Carrie blinked. Wait, you're the Maya from the Tesla feature? Guilty, I said with a grin. It's been a busy month. The reporter laughed. And this car launch collaboration, pure brilliance. Tesla says your strategy doubled engagement in the first week. You must be proud. I looked at my family. I am. Preston's confident posture cracked for just a second. My mother's expression softened into disbelief. Carrie tried to speak, but all that came out was, I didn't know. I know, I said gently. You never asked. The reporter thanked me and walked off. Silence lingered like smoke. Finally, Mom whispered, You really did all this yourself? Every step, I said. And I didn't need a handout, just a chance. For a moment, her eyes glistened. We were hard on you, weren't we? Maybe, I said, smiling faintly. But it taught me how to stand on my own. Dad stood up slowly and said what I never thought I'd hear. I'm proud of you, kiddo. That sentence hit harder than any insult ever could. Carrie came closer, her voice small. I'm sorry for, The bus thing. I chuckled softly. Don't worry, I don't take it anymore. She looked down at the Tesla, then back at me. Clearly. Later, as I drove away, I looked in the rearview mirror. At the estate, the people, the very place that once made me feel small. Now, it looked smaller than ever. The road stretched ahead, open, golden, endless. I turned up the music, the electric hum of the car blending with the rush of wind. And for the first time in my life, I didn't just feel like I was going somewhere. I was there, happy, free, unstoppable. The girl they mocked for taking the bus now owned the road.